Hello, all, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harris, and I am joined by two wonderful guys to take part in something we love more than pretty much anything else. And that, of course, is reviewing films, either current or classic, and dishing up some movie news. You gotta love those husky, hairy, huggable homos we call Jim Puliafco and Will Lindis. Jim, how you doing? Welcome.
We're here. Thanks. And welcome to the podcast, everyone.
Glad to have you. And Will, how about you? How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm in that perfect part of the kind of late summer, early fall, like whatever, this sort of transitionary time is, where there's still pool parties and things like that to enjoy, but there's also all of the fun fall activities like right around the corner. So I'm absolutely loving life right now. How about you, Brad? You're always asking us how we're doing.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. Will, for a minute there, you sounded like, I don't know, it was about to be an NPR show about leaf peeping in the fall.
Actually,
crisp
I'm
autumn weather.
Leaf peeping. I'm here to announce my new Tumblr.
Oh, don't tell me it could be covered with a leaf. But anyway, depends on the size of the leaf, I guess. We've got some folks that are joining us.
Banana leaf.
We've got some folks that are joining us in the live chat. Looks like we've got a few folks here already. Hello, Bobby Miller and everyone else that's jumped on. We've got hopefully a fun show for you this week. We are going to be reviewing The Meg, the new mega shark action film starring Jason Statham. No, it has nothing to do with Family Guy, but we're also going to be serving up a little bit of movie news here in just a second. So got a lot of stuff to talk about this week as we seek to dive in. Before we do, though, just a couple housekeeping items. Reminder, the Movie Bears podcast is now on Spotify. Guys, we've had a ton of people accessing the show on Spotify now that it's launched there. So if Spotify is your preferred medium for accessing music and podcasts, be sure to find the Movie Bears podcast there. Of course, you can continue to enjoy the show on iTunes, on our website, and Stitcher Radio. If you're using that as well, feel free to peruse our back catalog. Hopefully, there's a lot of good stuff for you to enjoy there on a long car ride or maybe a long plane ride. But guys, episode 291, we are in mid-August. Our anniversary in December is coming up super, super fast.
Hurtling toward number 300 and our, is it 6th anniversary?
6th? I'm doing math in my... Carry the 5, subtract the 8, add the 21. Yeah, I think it's 6.
Our podcast is starting first grade. Like it's really coming along there, huh?
First day of school is coming up. Aw. Speaking of late summer, early fall, right?
Well, there you go.
First day of schools.
There are kids who I have friends and family members in certain parts of the United States who, as of the time of this recording, their kids have already gone back to school, which feels super early, right?
It does feel early. I remember the days where you'd start school like after Labor Day and you'd end like, I don't know, the 4th or 5th of May or something. You'd have like a full like 3.5 months or something. Now it's like they're out of school for a month.
Yeah, I think
that's it.
There's some spots, and I forget exactly where it was, but I know of at least one area where it was like August 2nd was the start date. It's just like, really? Like, that is super early. Like, I guess it doesn't really affect me. I'm not of school age, nor do I have children that are, but it's still weird.
The only way it affects me is like when you want to go see, I don't know, a movie in the early afternoon, like maybe you're getting out of work early or something and you're like, I'm going to beat the crowds. I'm going to go see a movie. And then you get there and, ton of fucking kids. So, I dropped it out to the show. Oh, well, tag for a reason. But in any event, I'm curious to hear how many kids, we'll get to movie news in a second, but guys, before we even talk about the Meg, how many kids were in your showing? Well, I'm curious.
I'll be honest, not a whole lot. Mainly because I saw it at my Alamo Draft House on a kind of an evening showing. So there were a few people. There were maybe a couple that had like teen kids with them, but that was about it. I take it you had a different experience.
We had a few. One of them even cried out in terror at one point in the movie. It was delicious. So I was just curious, how many parents taking their kids to the movie. But
yeah. Oh no, we're breaking up. Sorry for you guys listening. We're having maybe some internet issues tonight, so please bear with us. Brad, you still there?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
You're back. You're back.
It's clear now.
You're back again. But yeah, I mean,
okay.
kids in this movie. Man, I think that might be part of why this movie. Well, we'll get into it later, but that may be a factor in the enjoyment of this movie for some people. We'll get to that though.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Well, before we do, Steve Souza in the chat says there's no kids at the lunch pizza buffets anymore. Fat boys rejoice. Well, Steve, there you go.
Yep.
Silver cheese encrusted linings, I guess.
Yeah.
But guys, how do you feel about dishing up, speaking of food, some movie news before we get to our main review? Are we ready to go?
Yeah, there's been some things that we should probably talk about. It's been a while since we've done movie news.
It has.
It really has. We've had a lot of double up episodes, and we've also had some weeks where the news has either hit super hard or hit super light. But I feel pretty good about our array of topics tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, array. Good word. I like it. All right. Well, then here we go. Some movie news. All right, so big news coming out of the Oscars late last week. The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences said they are creating an Academy Award for Outstanding Achievement in Popular Film. And basically, we've got a new award category that's going to be in play at the next Oscars. And essentially, if your film is the most popular, you may be able to win this award. Some folks have been expressing some disappointment about this on Twitter. Imagine that, including Rob Lowe, who is a long-term member of the Academy, who described the Oscars as dead at this point. And I'm curious, from your perspective, guys, would you agree with Rob Lowe? Are the Oscars dead, or is this maybe a good thing?
I don't think that it's a good thing. But I think the place you really have to start with this is the Oscars is a trade organization for people that are involved in the film industry, not just actors, but people who are, in writing and direction and, a lot of the kind of the in front of the screen and behind the screen, all of these different like trade unions all coming together to vote. So I don't place as much like positive or negative like emphasis on these winners because I'm not a member of the Academy. So it's fun to watch. It's a fun thing to watch. It's fun to root along, but I don't get it doesn't personally affect me when a film wins, and it doesn't personally affect me when a film loses. I'm not part of the fuck the Oscars crowd. I say all that because what I'm about to say is I don't think the Oscars are dead because it's not our organization. It's not our trade show. But I do dislike this thing because it draws a line in the sand between two different types of film, what we would consider like the Oscar film and what we would consider the popular film. And by doing this, it basically is saying that your popular film isn't Oscar, isn't worthy of being Best Picture because it's popular, or your Best Picture thing is probably over here because it isn't popular. I don't like that distinction. What I would like to see instead would be to see that category of 10, that's this 10 nominees that you can have for Best Picture, they don't often fill that up. A lot of times they only use like 8 of them. I'd like to see them fill that up to 10, and I'd like to see the Academy more willing to vote on some of the higher quality popular films, like we saw with Mad Max Fury Road when that made it into the nominations for Best Picture. I think this separates two types of films and draws a distinction, like, hey, these are your low quality films, but we're still going to give them an award. Whereas I think that some of those popular films are high quality films and maybe should be in consideration for Best Picture, but we're not going to see things like Black Panther or the Mad Max Fury Roads of the world in the main category because of this dump category. So I have an issue with it.
It's interesting. When this was announced, I was like, oh, this is interesting. They haven't really made a major change like this, like adding what I would consider kind of a big category. And I don't know where it's going to sit in, you know how they have like an order of presentation when they do the Oscars. I don't know where it's going to sit in that order of presentation, if it's going to be like at the beginning of the night, kind of at the low level, you know, where all the like, you know, achievement in makeup and stuff, or if it's going to be like up near the top where like the best, you know, best actor and best picture are. But I saw the negative reaction. I'm like, I'm not sure I can get on board with all the negative reaction. First of all, well, you say it draws a line in the sand, but I don't know if you're in the popular category, you can't be nominated as Best Picture as well. Like, I don't think that's the case, and I think we're going to have crossover, but you know, with movies like the Mad Maxes and maybe even Black Panther this year. I don't know. We'll have to see how that goes. Unless, Will, you know a little bit more about, like, if you're nominated in one category, you can't be nominated in the other. I like the fact that these movies, I mean, every year we've been hearing the same complaints. Oh, all those big movies I watched this year that I thought were really good are not getting any attention by these Oscar snobs. You know what I mean? They're just not getting attention and from the Academy. And maybe that's true, because maybe the tastes of the Academy are slightly skewed from the popular audience. So why not give some recognition to these big movies? Let them have their moment in the sun. I saw a comment on Twitter that said, like, they're probably so why would a director take on an obviously like tentpole or blockbuster movie? And sorry if
Hey, Jim, we're gonna go ahead and just hang for a second. Internet issues strike again.
Okay.
Is robot. Unfortunately. My goodness. I wonder if we should try and keep going, reschedule. Babe, are you back with us?
I'm here. Am I hearing are you hearing me?
Okay. I think I can hear you.
Is it clearing
now.
up? Is it clearing up?
A little bit.
Testing.
Will, are you able to hear us, Will?
I am. You guys both still have like a I don't know how best to describe it, a digital tinge. And Brad's gone completely now.
Yeah, Brad kind of dropped off. I wonder if he's going to join back up. We shall see.
So this is I've prepared a 90-minute long one-man show. When I was a kid now.
Well, I guess I'll close off what I was going to say. I think it's good that movies that we always complain every year don't get the attention from the Academy and in the Oscar show are going to get that. And I don't think it's true that there are directors who would take on these movies but yet don't want to be recognized for these movies in a category that's specifically for these movies. I think it could be fun to see this Let's see what happens. I think it's good to shine a light on some movies that some people feel that deserve to have that light shown on them.
Yeah, it's just uncomfortable because ever since the animated category is the thing that I most look at. Like once we had the animated feature category, Every so often you'll see an animated feature like sneak into the Best Picture nominees, but it's not as frequent and it's not as possible now because the voter, like a film can be in multiple categories, but the voters have to choose to put it there. And a lot of times it becomes very easy to say, well, let's vote for these other ones because there's always a spot for this one over here. And it takes like kind of a rare film to sort of like break that. Like I think the only two animated features that have made it into Best Picture since the animated category have been Toy Story 3 and Up, so pretty much only Pixar.
Yeah.
If we didn't have that animated category, you might, and I think the animated category makes sense, but if you didn't have it, you might see more of those things become stronger contenders in the main category, or at least more people filling out those nominees. But I think voters are pretty comfortable saying, all right, we have an animated category, so we can put our real movies here. And I think that's going to happen with this category.
Yeah, we'll never know if that's why. I mean, I say I don't think it's all of a bad thing. It seems, people don't like change. I get that. But I say let's see how it plays out and have that discussion. I think we'll definitely have that discussion sometime early next year after the Oscars and see how we liked it and see how it worked out.
I'm sure we will, and I'm anxious to see if this brings more people to the Oscars in terms of ratings. I think that's one of the reasons they're doing this as well. Is everyone's tuning out of the Oscars. Last year's Oscars were the lowest watched Oscars in like recent history. So we'll have to see if it has an impact. But let's switch gears a little bit and let's move over to you, babe. Jim, what have you got from movie news this week?
I have some Star Trek movie news. Now, there's been a ton of news lately about Star Trek coming out of, there was a Star Trek convention not too long ago. CBS seems to be on fire with like they've got like 4 different Star Trek shows, like irons in the fire for Star Trek TV shows and new startups. So there's a lot of Star Trek news, and it all seems kind of positive, except for this news. This is about the movies. We saw the last one we saw was Star Trek Beyond. Right before that, we had Into Darkness, and then the first movie, the first Star Trek movie in this new Kelvin universe generation of movies, which I've actually really enjoyed most of what they've offered. There's been some points that weren't so great. Star Trek Into Darkness was okay, being a kind of a direct remake of the Khan series. But the disappointing news here is that Chris Pine and Chris Hemsworth are, as of now, no longer attached to the next Star Trek movie, Star Trek 4, which doesn't have one of those new titles yet. Apparently, contract talks between the two Chris's and the studio, Paramount and Skydance, kind of fell apart in their negotiations of this contract. So they basically kind of walked away from the table, and no one knows really where that leaves these series because there's other talent that needs to have their contract renewed for this movie. Pine has been Captain Kirk, and Hemsworth has been Captain Kirk's father, and he was scheduled to come back. And now it appears, unless things change, we're not going to get either one of these back. And I think the reason for this, and I've been reading, is that it came down to money. It came down to the fact that Paramount, I think, based on the kind of lagging performance, box office performance of the last couple of movies, has tried to renegotiate the contracts that were in place. And of course, the talent, the actors, wanted to keep the same deal. They were in negotiations and things just broke down, and the two sides went their different ways. So now we don't know what we're going to get. We don't know if we're going to get those roles recast when they do this movie. We don't know if they will maybe keep Chris Pine and shed Hemsworth and do away with kind of the father flashback angle. I don't know what the story was going to be in this movie. There's many ways they could do it. I don't know. It's disappointing for me as a fan of. I really am a fan of these new movies. Like I said, there's been some high points and low points, but I like what they're doing. I also like what they're doing on TV, but I don't know, Brad, you're even a bigger Star Trek fan than I am. What do you think of this news?
I got to be honest with you. Like, as much as I liked the first J.J. Abrams Star Trek movie, the last couple haven't been super great. I mean, I liked Into Darkness better than you did, Jim, I think. But Star Trek Beyond was just a steaming pile of crap for me. So I would say, rather than even having the movie continue without Chris Pine, I would just say, let's put these movies out to pasture. Like, they had their time, you know, the focus is shifting over to TV anyway. We've got a fucking Captain Picard show coming in, which I'm super stoked about. And, you know, Discovery has just been on fire. It's amazing. And so when I look at something like Discovery in one hand, which is amazing and beautiful and awesome, and the steaming pile of recycled Beastie Boys song crap, it's kind of like, which one do I want my focus to be? Easy choice to make. I think it's just, it's kind of unfortunate in a way, because, you know, the last movie was directed by Justin Lin, right, from the Fast and Furious fame. And I think some folks were excited to kind of see what he could do and maybe turn the franchise around a little bit. And it just ended up being a glorified motorcycle movie when it's supposed to be a science fiction, you know, space, the final frontier film. So, you know, whatever, it can die. I'm cool with that. Will, how about you?
So I'm less of a Star Trek fan of the three of us. Yeah, I have no problem with it, but I don't, you know, it's not a cultural touchstone for me the way it is for a lot of people. So, going off of these three films, I'm very close to you though, Brad. I would say that each one was a degradation in quality from the previous one, with the J.J. Abrams Star Trek being the best, Into Darkness being middling, Beyond being troublesome. And so when I heard that the first thing I heard about Star Trek 4 was like, Pine and Hemsworth are walking away, and my first honest reaction was like, oh, they're making another one? Well, I guess maybe they're not. Like, my degree of like apathy was pretty high upon hearing this news. I think you're right. Like, if you've got your Captain Kirk character wanting to walk away from the franchise because the studio realized that the property didn't make as much money and they were didn't make as much money as expected, and they were going to have to renegotiate his deal below what he signed for, there's no reason for Pine to stay. He's a big part of like the Wonder Woman franchise at this point. His star is on the rise. I'm sure if Star Trek was able to justify keeping to their original budget what they had originally talked to Hemsworth and Pine about, I'm sure they would have both been on board. They weren't. They've walked. I get it. Maybe there's a story that you can do where Spock takes over and you do some of the other cast members or whatever, but at a certain point it feels like that season of The Office after Michael Scott left. You know, it's just sort of like, you know, it just needs to die already. You've got other things that are doing a better job of it. You've got the Star Trek series, like you said, you've got Picard. Hell, I would even say that the Orville is a way better Star Trek property than any of the recent Star Trek movies are.
Oh, that is
phaser shots fired.
Phaser shots
that
fired.
Cannot stand.
No, once you get past the first like episode of the Orville where like they couldn't figure out the humor of it, it actually turns into a remarkably good Star Trek series after that. And way more than these Star Trek movies have. So yeah, I'm not upset that we may not get a Star Trek 4. I, to be honest, wasn't excited for it to begin with. So sorry.
Oh, that's all right. I mean, it's disappointing to hear you guys are. I mean, maybe it will die. If certainly if they can't get Pine back, you know, if they can't get Helmsworth back, I think it's savable, maybe. But if they can't get Pine back, it probably is worth, you know, letting it die. Let the past die. Kill it
if you have to.
You know, there's a fix there, though. I think you just hit on the fix. Like, Hemsworth is way less important to the series than Pine. So let Hemsworth walk, and then just take some of the money that you had budgeted towards him, shove it towards Pine, and see if that fixes.
See if we can make something happen. Yeah,
yeah.
And it's also a little disappointing because I think they had a woman director attached to this fourth movie, which would have been kind of interesting to see how a new voice. Especially, you know, a female voice that is kind of director wise is not. We haven't seen that in these movies. I don't know if we've seen it in Star Trek series. Maybe we have a little bit, but I would have liked to have seen that. I'm a little disappointed. I think I like the movies a little bit better than you guys. But yeah, so there we go. We'll have to watch this one and see what's going to happen.
Well, way to go, Chris Pine, screwing over a woman for money. Imagine that.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to tweet that right now. I'm going to tweet my outrage.
That's going to be a strongly worded.
You greedy misogynist bastard.
Oh boy. Well, we'll have to see what happens. There may be news tomorrow where it's all reversed and they decided to get the money. Who knows what's going to happen, but it is what it is, I guess, at this point. We'll have to see. Will, how about you? What have you got this week?
Yeah, so I went very small with my news because I figured the Oscar news was going to be the bigger topic. So more than anything, I just wanted to share a thing that people should keep an eye out for that is coming out relatively soon, grand scheme of things. So we've talked a few times on this show about Jeremy Saulnier. He's a director who I quite enjoy. I think his films have made several of my top 10 lists. He's the guy that gave us Green Room and Blue Ruin and Murder Party, if you track that down. So he had another film that has been circling around since doing the film circuit in the spring, and then it's just been sitting waiting for distribution. It's called Hold the Dark. It's this movie that's going to be set in Alaska, where you've got Jeffrey Wright is this hunter who's trying to rescue this boy who's been taken by wolves, who I guess are trying to like raise him as one of their own. This movie was part of that controversial like Netflix and Cannes Film Festival thing, like just kind of all of that ugliness. And so because of that, they wanted to make sure that it had its premiere at another festival before it went theatrical. So it's premiering at TIFF in Toronto, and then it's going to be on Netflix on immediately afterwards because it's a Netflix property. So September 28th, which is a Friday, Hold the Dark by Jeremy Saulnier is coming out. I'm super excited about it. I'm loving these. I'm loving some of these like Netflix original films, not like the Adam Sandler ones or just like there's a bunch of crap that they get dropped in there, but they get a few every year, like the Meyerowitz stories and stuff like that. And Okja, where they have these like really unique, interesting, strong voices that they're able to put out to the masses instead of just burying it at one of like 20 theaters nationwide. So I'm excited for Hold the Dark. Jim, I know you're on the Saulnier train, right?
I am. I love Blue Ruin. I know Green Room is one of probably your like favorite movies. I liked it. It didn't, reach that level for me, but Blue Ruin I really liked. It was like blew me away. Blue Ruin blew me away. So yeah, I'm definitely on this this release. It's coming out on Netflix, and it's right, Will. It's interesting to see the movies that are coming out on VOD. Like some of these movies we saw. There was one movie, I think it's Hot Summer Nights or something, that we saw like two like South bys ago, and that are just like coming out on Netflix now. And the reason why is because like an actor like Timothée Chalamet like blew up with Call Me by Your Name. So of course they're going to go back and we found this old movie by Timothée Chalamet. The movie's not so great, but let's put it out there and see how many people will buy it. But yeah, I'm definitely interested to see what the next one holds for Saulnier. Will, what have you heard about it? Have you heard that it's really good?
So what I've heard so far has been positive. It's and part of it's because they did hold it and kind of do like the prestige circuit instead of the genre circuit. If you think about it, like his last two films were more like Fantastic Fest Fair, and this is more like Cannes TIFF. So it's definitely in terms of like prestige, like, or what air quotes prestige, it's a step up there. It's got a heck of a cast there, because not only has it got Jeffrey Wright role, but you've also got Alexander Skarsgård and Riley Keough, who I absolutely adore. Everything that I've heard about it is really good. I've also heard it's pretty damn bloody. So like, you know, that has to be in your wheelhouse. But you know, that's one of the, you know, red is definitely one of the palettes that Saulnier paints with.
Indeed.
We'll probably
so it's a TIFF.
Go ahead, Brave.
Nope, I was gonna say something.
Oh, just a follow up to that. Like, red is blood is probably another thing we're going to talk about in a little while.
Yeah.
I imagine so. So the movie's at TIFF right now. I've never been to TIFF, but I'm thinking, you know, along the lines of like what might make TIFF cool for me. Probably not this movie because I'm not a Saulnier fan. Sorry. But do they have a brunch called Breakfast at TIFF? Because that would kind of be amazing.
I don't know. That's a good question to put on Twitter. I'm putting it out there right now.
Pun it up.
Yeah.
Pun it up for
I'll ask our film Twitter what's going on.
There you go. Find out for us. But Will, I'm excited that this movie is coming out because I know how much of a Saulnier fan you are. Even though Green Room didn't really do a whole lot for me. Sorry, Evil Picard. I know that for a lot of people that was really, really killer. So I'm glad to hear that this is coming down the pipeline. I didn't realize it was coming out so soon. So that's exciting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They were able to do this kind of announcement turnaround fairly quickly because it's been kind of like, theorized that it would be doing kind of the fall festival circuit and the Netflix right after. But the announcement for it was part of TIFF's first, one of their wave announcements just a couple of days ago with the Netflix and basically being about 6 weeks out. So, from festival, for most people, from festival to the ability to see it with their own eyes, this is a super quick turnaround.
Indeed. Well, that's great. Speaking of waves, we have an ocean-themed movie to discuss this week. Chums, are you ready to maybe get to our review of The Meg? Is it time?
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Oh, yeah, let's go. Let's dive in.
Well, it's always sad to fin one segment and move to another. That was a terrible pun. I'm so sorry, not sorry. But we are going to go ahead and talk about The Meg. For those who may be unfamiliar with our format, we're going to talk about The Meg spoiler-free for probably about 10 minutes. It's going to be a very abbreviated non-spoiler segment. And then we'll give you fair warning before we open things up to spoilers. If you're on the fence about The Meg, you want some perspective, don't worry. We'll give you some thoughts. We'll tell you if we think you should go see it in theaters, maybe rent it, maybe skip it. And then we will give you that warning before the lid comes off the can. Oh, spoilers. So all of that said, here we go. Our discussion of The Meg.
Doo-doo. 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 Doo-doo.
Oh, goodness. Well, it's summer, and what's summer without a shark movie? Especially when we're about to go back to Hawaii in the fall and get in the ocean, and I can be terrified of sharks all over again. Yay. Jim, I know you were super excited for The Meg. Seems only fitting you kick this thing off. Of course. What are your thoughts on kind of the set of this film, whether people should see it or not?
I'm holding because we may have robot-isms going on. Am I frozen too well?
You're coming out of it. You guys both froze up, and then you kind of did the domo arigato thing.
Okay. So here's the thing. Internet, if you're listening, you suck.
Yeah, we've been having this problem. We're going to have to address it. We had the problem the other day, but thought it would self-rectify, but it has not. So.
What a bunch of cocks, and not the good kind.
I know.
All right.
You're a bunch of dicks.
I'm still hearing some robot in Jim. Will, is there still robot in me?
It's...
no, that's just
what you did before the episode.
Just your vibrator, not a real robot.
Yeah, it sounds like it's probably leveling out.
Okay.
All right, Jim, this is going to be a bastard of a show
It's
to
gonna be
edit.
a bitch. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that, but let's maybe just kind of make our way through the best that we can for now. Let's just back it up.
Sure.
I'm gonna back it up a second. So, Jim, I know you were super excited about the Meg. It seems only fitting that you kick this segment off for us. Give us the basic setup of the film for anyone that may be unfamiliar, and whether you think it's worth seeing in theaters, waiting for rental, or skipping entirely. And, of course, do all that spoiler-free. Tall order, I know, but go for it.
Yeah, so we got this movie called The Meg, and I've been looking forward to the, kind of a big dumb shark movie ever since I saw the trailer for this one. It seemed like, it almost couldn't miss when you have, a big shark. I mean, not that big terrifying shark movies haven't been done before. It's not really, quote, an original story, but it's not a sequel. It's not a prequel, I don't think. And it's not like a remake per se, even though it has elements of other movies in there. Here's the synopsis of The Meg. A retired expert deep sea rescue diver, Jonas Taylor, is recruited by members of an international deep sea observatory to rescue members of its crew who are trapped on the ocean floor after an mysterious incident with an undersea force. Now this hero must confront his fears and risk his own life to save everyone trapped below, bringing him face to face once more with the greatest ocean predator of all time, a 75-foot shark known as the Megalodon. Oh my God, it's Megalodon. That was my poor Jason Statham imitation. Man, I really wanted this movie to kind of set things on fire. It didn't. That's not to say I didn't find this movie to be a bad movie. I still had a pretty good time watching this movie. It didn't put me to sleep, which is good. It went in some directions I wasn't expecting, but for the most part, I enjoyed this movie. I can't say it's a great movie. There's a lot of things I wish it had done better, and we'll get into those a little bit in here. Mainly, I think this movie was not self-aware enough. I think this movie tried to take itself a little too seriously as the other
Pause. Yeah. Okay. Here's a suggestion, you guys. I think we should abbreviate the and get through it as and we'll solve this next week. I don't know what with our internet connections. Are you
something? Y'all are still a little staccato right now. But I was able to hear the main point. I agree. Like we can do maybe even like skip the spoiler section and just kind of go through the main part of the review and then move to the end.
Yeah, that may be a good idea here.
And then that'll make it easier for what Jim turns into the final audio product.
Yeah. Okay, so you're talking finishing the review, spoiler-free part?
Yeah, so we'll go. We'll just do spoiler-free review. We can encourage people to see it. We're not, all that good stuff, and then we'll just move into some plugs and wrap early. That's all right.
Okay.
I think we're back.
We're clear now. We're good.
Yeah,
okay.
I think we're clear. So, Jim, if you want to just kind of back it up a little bit. Yeah.
I think this movie probably could have benefited from a harder rating, an R rating. The movie, the studio tried to put this out as a PG-13 movie. So now we have a big shark movie with giant teeth, people getting killed, but no blood, no gore, not really much gore other than shark gore, or whale gore, which wasn't really that interesting. It just tried to walk the line between kind of a sciencey shark movie and a toned down version of Jaws, which didn't really work all that great. Still, for what it was, I thought it was fine. It kind of reminded me of the Rampage movie where you had these giant creatures and you thought it was going to be great, and it was just kind of limp. It was just kind of there. So I wouldn't recommend running out and seeing this movie. I think you can wait to see this movie on VOD when it comes out.
All right. So we got to wait for rental from Jim. Will, how about you? Where do you come in?
Yeah, you mentioned the Family Guy reference at the beginning of this one. This movie really made me want to just say, "Shut up, the Meg." I'm with you, Jim. Like, watching the trailers for this felt like this could be the movie that, air quote, saves summer. The big original, maybe a little dumb but fun property that just lets us have a little bit of fun. And my problem with this movie is that I didn't end up having a ton of fun with it. I feel like it tried to be too many things and not the things that it needed to be. I think that if you took this story and reworked it to where it was more serious, I think this could have been interesting and fun. I think if you had reworked it and made it way less silly, like way less serious and just more over the top and stupider and just sillier, because there are some silly moments in this movie and the silly moments absolutely work, but they're so few and far between. But instead, it's this kind of lifeless spot in between where the serious moments don't really land because you're thinking about the wacky stuff, and the wacky stuff feels out of place because you just saw a serious moment. So it didn't really work for me tonally, which affected the entire structure of the story. All of that, just like, it made me very aware how unaware this film was of itself. You mentioned that this is a PG-13 movie. This is probably the most bloodless shark movie I've seen in a long time. Not that I need like just buckets of blood or anything like that, but I feel like there were large sections of this movie where instead of showing like the gratifying thing, like we want to see some crazy kills, we want to see like something fun, something interesting, something intense. I think what we got a lot of are cutaways. Like, there were a lot of moments where like the shark would be about ready to bite someone or something,
and then they're gone.
And then it would either swallow them whole, which I get, it's a giant shark, or it looks like it's going to chop them in half, but instead of like you seeing something, whatever, it would cut to a different angle, and then you'd see him biting something else. Like, it would never like really follow through on this stuff. And again, like, I don't necessarily need like gore to make my movie, but I think when you have the promise of gore, like this movie certainly has with this giant thing, and then you have these sort of like cock tease cutaways, I feel like it does a disservice to what the film's trying to go for. I think back to even like the worst of the Jaws movies, well, amongst the worst, the Jaws 4 had some real issues, but there's like that amazing scene where like the dude gets like bitten and dragged underwater, and you can see him like struggling all the way down, and you can see kind of like the blood coming up from it. And it's a terrifying moment, and it makes you really feel like the tension and the terror of like what's happening. And I never felt that here. This felt like worse than a sci-fi movie, because at least the sci-fi movies remember like what they are and kind of veer into it. So this is a pass for me. Even the cast was terribly underutilized. I didn't feel like Rainn Wilson's character was written well at all. His motivations kept shifting. I felt like the guy that played DJ was just absolutely obnoxious. I felt like Jason Statham's character was just too much of a kind of an action hero Mary Sue for me to really care about. I don't know, just didn't work for me, but mileage will vary.
All right. Well, for me, let's see. This wasn't the greatest movie ever, but I feel like I was entertained. I feel like I got out of this movie about what I expected to get out of it. I didn't go in thinking it was going to be some kind of masterpiece. I didn't think it was going to be the movie that saved summer. I just thought it was going to be a movie about Jason Statham, like, squaring off against fucking giant mega shark. And I, for the most part, got that. It's one of those things where, like, yes, you guys are absolutely on point. The gore wasn't so much there. Lots of cutaways. It kind of pulled a lot of punches. I think too, because this movie was based off of a book, right? So when we talk about, is this an original, thing? I mean, it's one part of a franchise. I think The Trench was part of this series as well, and that movie came out several years ago. So, I mean, I don't know. It could have been a lot better, but I really enjoyed seeing Jason Statham. I enjoyed seeing cool submersible vehicles. I enjoyed seeing Jason Statham without his shirt on. I don't know that I consider that a spoiler because it's just confirming a draw for the film. So, yes, you get some hot, hairy muscle in this movie, and that maybe helped because that's in my wheelhouse, maybe more so than you guys. But I don't know. It was fun. It's a popcorn movie. I'd say if you're kind of in this spot right now where it's the only movie your movie pass will let you see, then you might as well go see it.
Not even sure it will.
Otherwise, maybe wait for rental on this one. But I mean, it's fun if you want a nice afternoon at the movies, maybe this weekend or something. Go see it on the biggest screen you can with the best sound you can. I still think you'll have a good time, but yeah, don't go into this expecting like, I don't know, a masterpiece film, because it's not even remotely going to be that.
Not even close to a masterpiece.
Yeah,
like I said, there were parts.
Piece, right?
There were parts. There were parts that had me interested. I actually really liked the setup of this movie. I liked the. Although it did remind me a lot of Piranha. Remember Piranha 3D? It did remind me a lot of that. I did like the setup, and I like the kind of the explanation of the thermal layer and all that stuff. But without getting too much into spoilers, I kind of like that part of it. I just wish the movie had followed through with a little bit more terror. I wasn't really scared of the shark, and that's a problem. You know what I mean? That's a real problem. And maybe there are too many shark movies at this point for us to really be scared in the movie theater of a giant shark. Or maybe it's the movie's fault for not making the shark and its actions, more terrifying.
Well, I think at least Mandy Moore wasn't in this one. I mean, it had that going for it, right?
Yeah. I liked 47 meters a lot more than this one, which is going to be unpopular. But
whoa,
the shallows, yes. Not 47.
Both 47 meters and Shallows at least gave me characters that I cared about in relationship to the story. Both of those stories, what they were about was they were character driven stories that the shark became an external motivator on. And yes, there were some character moments here in the Meg, but they're really related to just Jason Statham's character and the way he interacts with a few people. But those relationships feel very, very artificial. And some of them don't get any narrative closure. There's some where it's there's some tension here, and now that character's not here again. There's just a lot of stuff along those lines where I feel like it's just this script needed another pass. The characters that we spent the most time with were very uninteresting, and that's always a problem, when you're getting to your climax of the film and you're just I could if 4 of these people died, I'd be okay. That's a problem. When you're rooting for the shark, you got an issue. And that's not to say there's bad characters in this movie. I think there are a couple that are interesting, but those characters just get moved out of the story in different directions for different reasons. And it's, and you can guess what one of the reasons is. But I don't know. It's this needed some work. But Brad, you did mention something very off topic, but I feel like we need to, and it's too soon to do this because things change 4 times a week on it right now. But I feel like we probably have a postmortem on Movie Pass episode coming up sometime in our future.
But it won't die, Will. It won't die at this point.
At some point, it'll either die or it'll level out or something. Right now, it's I thought about doing it as a news item, but then I thought shit, I don't even know if I know what the latest is right now. So that may be a good future topic.
it may, and maybe this is a good time for a public service announcement, but for anyone that has Movie Pass or had it and you canceled it, chances are Movie Pass may be automatically renewing your subscription, even though you canceled. So you may want to go back in and take a look at that just in case. It's all over the news wires today that that's happening. So tomorrow, I guess, is a big day when a new plan takes effect. And a whole bunch of people who canceled are getting resubscribed and charged. So if you canceled, go back in today or probably even tomorrow and just check to be sure that that's still the case. But unfortunate. Maybe the Meg took a big bite out of Movie Pass. The Meg was one of the only movies you could see with Movie Pass over the weekend. It was the Meg and Slender Man. So pickings were pretty slender. In any event, hey, listen, the more we talk about the Meg, the more I'm kind of convinced that like going into spoilers might be kind of a disservice for anyone who might potentially still go see this movie. So what do you guys think about maybe just putting the lid and keeping it on the spoilers? We'll skip them and we'll move on into some plugs.
I think that's a good call.
All right. Well, guess what? We're going to go ahead and skip spoilers for the Meg. If the movie sounds interesting or fun, definitely go out, check it out. But guys, let's wrap up here with some plugs. Will, what have you got this week?
Yeah, so there are a few good movies out right now that that aren't the Meg. So one that I would point you towards is the new Spike Lee joint, Black Klansman. I've been a little hit or miss on Spike Lee lately. For example, we had Chirac a few years ago, which I probably liked more than a lot of people, but it still had its issues. But Black Klansman is top-notch Spike Lee, like some of his best work in a long time. It stars John David Washington, who is actually Denzel Washington's son, and Adam Driver telling the real-life story of an African-American police officer in Colorado who successfully managed to infiltrate the Ku Klux Klan with the help of his white fellow police officer. One did the phone conversations and the other one showed up in person to the things, and actually ended up interacting with like David Duke and like several of these figures. This is an incredibly funny and incredibly poignant and incredibly of the now movie that knows when to like veer into just sort of the ridiculousness of the situation, because it is a fairly ridiculous story when you look at it on paper, even though it actually happened, and also knows when to veer into the like, hey, this is a movie about like some pretty heavy racial topics, and there's a reason why in 2018 this movie is very appropriate to watch. There's a reason why this movie came out on the date that it did. So I strongly recommend Black Klansman. It is not just top-notch Spike Lee, but it is like top-notch film in general for the year. Like something that we've had a good run of films about kind of racial issues actually this year, between this, Blind Spotting, and Sorry to Bother You, and I'm super here for it. So yeah, Black Klansman, please go see it in theaters. It's good.
Yeah, Will, it's on our list. I got to tell you what's keeping me a little lukewarm on seeing this is it's weird. It's the runtime. I looked at the runtime and I was
Oh, good.
Hey, you're still robot-y. Give it a second.
Am I back?
Kind of say something else.
You guys are coming back.
Coming back.
Oh boy! Oh boy!
Right there. It's like it's on the right side, but it's not there yet.
See, am I there? Can I start?
Say something, Brad.
Testing.
Yeah, still a little robot-y.
Okay. Here's the plan. As soon as we're back in, we are going to speed through the end of this fucking show. So we're going to be very, very fast with our plugs so we can wrap this up. I think we're okay. So, Jim, if you want to back it up, you were saying something about runtime?
The thing where you was the runtime.
The runtime of Black Klansman looks a little daunting to me. But that's not to say I won't see movies that are over 2.5 hours long or whatever it is. I'm a big fan of concise storytelling. But, hey, maybe the movie will warrant the runtime. And will it, from your description, it does. Another one I want to plug, another movie that has some things to say on its mind. And Will, I don't know if we plugged this one before. You just mentioned it in your list of movies, is Blind Spotting. Blind Spotting is one of my favorite films of the year so far. Haven't seen Black Klansman yet. But, I mean, Blind Spotting is this film by these two filmmakers and starring Rafael Casal and David Diggs. Both of them are amazing in this movie. Some great storytelling here, but also some great filmmaking, some great visual things. There's comedy in this movie, swings from comedy, some really funny stuff, to some really heavy, like, oh my God, like drop dead serious stuff. I love Blind Spotting. If it's still in your theaters, check it out. This movie does its thing in 1 hour and 35 minutes, and there's not a wasted frame in this movie. So check it out, Blind Spotting.
All right, awesome. And for me this week, you may not have had a chance to catch up with Avengers Infinity War. Believe it or not, I know of at least 3 people who did not get to see it while it was in theaters. They had just had other things they were doing and seeing. Be careful of spoilers, Jim. Avengers Infinity War is now out on Blu-ray and VOD. So if you haven't caught up with it yet, now is your chance to do so. You can rent it on your favorite VOD service or Redbox, even if that's what you prefer. Part of me wants to go back and watch this movie again, if nothing else, just because there's tons and tons of heroes on screen, and watching on a giant screen where you're looking at one part and then another part and another part, you tend to miss things. So I think I may be due for a rewatch. I don't know if I'll buy it. I might rent it, but definitely check it out in advance of the second part of Infinity War, which is coming out in like a year, and we'll be interested to hear your thoughts. If you weren't part of that discussion, feel free to reach out to us on Facebook. Let us know what you thought of the film. Just some quick apologies. A bit of an abbreviated show this week. We've been having a lot of technical difficulties with our internet connection here for Jim and myself. So it may not be the normal quality you're used to, but the beloved Jim Poliafico is going to do everything he can, at least for the audio version of the show, to do some editing magic and maybe make it sound a little bit better. But just want to say thank you to everyone who hung out with us tonight. Bobby Miller, Steve Zosa, and all the other folks that were with us in the live chat and hanging out in the background. It's a pleasure, as always. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up here. We'll figure out what we're up to next week, and we will let you know. Have a great week, everybody. Take care. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.